Hey everybody, it's time for another Feature Friday. This time around, we're going to talk about the MAF applications a little bit. Have you started working with them yet as far as making changes to them and such? Well, using the MAF tools, you can certainly do that sort of thing. The difficulty is finding out where things are. And so I'm going to show you how to use the URL that shows up in the browser when you launch the applications that way to give you an idea of which application you're in, the pages that you're on, and some other information as well. So hopefully this is helpful and somewhat interesting here on a Friday. So let's get going. Okay, so here we go. So I'm going to assume that you have the Docker desktop running behind the scenes where you're gaining access to the MAF Tools, which you'll see is this other tab that I have. We'll get to that in just a moment. And you're connected to the instance of Application Suite Manage, where your applications are stored. So we're just going to start out slowly here. And I'm going to start in Manage, which is where I'm at, and I'm landing on a Start Center here. And so you'll notice the URL across the top. Right here about in the middle, you start to see graphite/manage-shell. So that is the actual MAF application that I am in at the moment. If you work your way further across, you'll see Load App and you'll see Start Center. So that is the traditional application that is actually in this frame. And then way down here at the very end, you will see /main. And that is the page, if you will, of the manage-shell application that I am actually on at the moment. So I'm going to jump over to the MAF tools. And of course, I am connected to this instance of Manage. And it's quite a list of MAF applications. And I am just going to work my way down to the bottom here. And you can see manage-shell is my application that I'm going to look at here first. And then over, just as kind of a side note, is over here on the far right hand side is whether or not the application is mobile enabled, which in this case that particular shell is not mobile enabled. So now let's go back to the Manage tab. And this time I'm going to click on an operational dashboard. This application, of course, is fully an MAF application. And you will notice at the URL here at the top, again, graphite, and you see Ops Dashboard. That's the MAF app. And you work your way over to the far right-hand side, and at the very end, you will see Dashboard. And that's the actual page that I am on within the dashboard. So let's go back to the MAF tools now and find the Ops dashboard. Now, there's 3 pages of apps here, and I could certainly filter if I'd like, but it's just as easy to scroll through these. And here on the very last page, I see an application called Ops Dashboard. I'm going to go ahead and click this. And it will take a moment for everything to render here. But there is my XML and all the other information on this. But we're just interested in that page called Dashboard. So I'm going to search for that. And case is important. So capital D. Okay. And since I'm interested in a page here, I'm going to go ahead and minimize messages, data sources, and there will always be lots and lots of data sources. So we'll just minimize all of those. And here we are. Here's pages, and there's the page that is called Dashboard. I'm going to go ahead and double click that. Brings up the code, and you're able to see the ID dashboard. And so this is where my page is starting to be defined. If I roll down just a little bit, I see in the header there is a parameter called title, and that's where operational dashboard with a capital O is coming from. So if I go back to the operational dashboard, now things make a little more sense. This is my title here, and of course, dashboard is the name of the page that I am on. So let's now go to the Technician app. And I think I have been there before, so it's convenient for me to get to it here. And I'm going to launch the Technician application. And we can see it render here like we would expect. I've got some work orders in my list. And now that we're so clued into what the URL looks like, this becomes pretty easy. Up here at the top, of course, we have Graphite, and we see the name of the application called Tech Mobile. That's its actual name behind the scenes. And then over here on the far right-hand side, we see the word schedule. So I am in the Tech Mobile application, and I am on the schedule page. So let's go back to the tools, back to the application list, and go up a page or two and find the Tech Mobile application. And there it is at the very top. And I'm going to go ahead and search for schedule. And I type in schedule. Collapse all these out. Again, data sources and such. And here is a page called My Schedule. That's close. Let's click it and look in the code here. And we come right across the top here. And its title is called My Schedule. But look at its ID. ID is schedule. So the ID is the actual name of the page that we are looking for. All right, so that was easy. Let's go back to the Technician application, and we're going to open a work order. And you're going to notice that the URL is far more sophisticated than before. Some things are similar. Certainly, we are still in the same application. However, we can see there's a bit of a query here. We're looking at a particular work order number, the site that it's in. Even just for fun, you can see the MX API object structure that is being used. And then I'm just going to put my cursor in here, and I'm going to work my way over to the very end. And you can see that the page I am on that is showing me this work order is called Work Order Details. Let's go back to the tools, and let's go back to the search. And this is going to be Work Order Details. And there it is. There is the page. The page's title is Work Order. I'm going to double click on that. And you can see that there's the ID Work Order Details. That's what's actually being used by the system. And then the title for us humans is just called Work Order. So one last little tidbit I wanted to leave you with is in the far right-hand corner is your question mark that we're always familiar with. Under this question mark, there is a lot of documentation about the applications, their architecture, what pages are, menus are, data sources are, that sort of thing. So between the component documentation and the developer documentation, you will find a lot of help in understanding what all the different pieces are that make up these applications. All right, so there you go. Not too bad, just a little poking around with the URL in your browser, and it tells you a lot of information about what's going on in that application. So again, hope that was helpful. I enjoyed putting it together for you, and we'll see you again sometime soon. And stay current, my friends.